Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. On a quiet morning in London, a young girl disappeared without a trace, leaving her social media accounts eerily silent. A few weeks later, in a small city park, authorities were shocked to discover a body hastily hidden under a pile of dry branches. Behind scattered clues from trash bins quietly moved at night to a rusted shipping container tucked away in an industrial corner, there was a dark mystery of betrayal and cruelty. Who was behind this horrifying act? And what really happened inside that metal box in the heart of London? These questions haunted the community and pushed investigators into a grueling hunt for the truth. Join me over the next few minutes as we uncover the story of Agnes Dora Occom, a case that shook all of England during the summer of 2021. If you think today's story deserves more attention, please share this video, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming true crime stories. On the morning of the 11th of May 2021, a missing person report reached the Metropolitan Police. A young man frantically reported that he hadn't heard from his girlfriend, Agnes, for 2 days. On top of that, Agnes had always been very active on social media, but since the previous weekend, all her accounts had gone completely silent. Sensing something was seriously wrong, her boyfriend reported her disappearance to the police. At first, the case was treated as a standard missing person situation. However, experienced investigators immediately sensed this was no ordinary runaway. Agnes was vulnerable and stranded in a city far from home. Agnes suddenly losing contact was highly unusual. The search kicked off immediately. In the first few days, local police checked all the places Agnes usually went, interviewed friends and colleagues, but found no leads. Numerous appeals for information were posted, and her portrait appeared across social media and local news. Yet, she remained nowhere to be found. 5 days passed in vain, and with concern mounting, local authorities decided to escalate the case to a special investigative unit. This was a turning point. What started as a missing person search was now shifting toward the possibility of a serious crime. Chief Investigator Neil John, along with his experienced colleagues, was dispatched, carrying a strong determination to uncover the truth, despite the initially very vague leads. While investigating the victim, the police learned that Agnes Occom, affectionately called Dora by her friends, was born in 2000 Inches, a small town in Hungary. She was a petite girl, with bright blonde hair and a constant smile on her face. Everyone around her described Agnes as gentle and kind. At the age of 15, she moved to England with her family, hoping for a brighter future. Upon arriving in London, Agnes quickly adapted to city life. At 20, Agnes was full of dreams. She always wanted to save money to either study a trade or start a small business. Before her disappearance, Agnes worked at a coffin workshop in London, a physically demanding job for a young woman, but she never complained and only wished to earn enough to support her life. In her personal life, Agnes was living with her boyfriend, a young man also of Eastern European origin, in a boarding house on Cricklewood Broadway. They had known each other and developed feelings since they were young. Life in a foreign land was far from easy. They faced financial difficulties to the extent that their young son had to be placed in a daycare center because the couple's finances were unstable. And that was the pain Agnes always carried in her heart. She longed to earn money quickly to reunite with her child. Her fragile circumstances made her a particularly vulnerable target. She was still very young, just stepping into adulthood, with limited English skills, tight finances, and little support from her family back home. The first breakthrough regarding Agnes's whereabouts came from CCTV footage along Cricklewood Broadway, where she was last seen. After reviewing hours of video, investigators spotted her around 11:45 a.m. on the 9th of May 2021, stepping into a silver car right on Broadway. Checking the license plate, they learned the car belonged to a 66-year-old Romanian man named Neculai Paisan. Following the vehicle's trail, the police arrived at a remote industrial area on North Acton Road in Park Royal. Among warehouses and workshops, Paisan had rented a large shipping container, converted into a makeshift living space. Security cameras in the area captured Agnes entering the container with Paisan around noon on May 9. However, there was no footage of Agnes leaving. 3 hours later, only Paisan was seen leaving alone, with his arm and shirt suspiciously stained with blood. From that moment, Agnes was nowhere to be seen. This chilling discovery sent shivers down the investigators' spines. It was almost certain they were facing a meticulously disguised murder case. The metal container immediately became a key crime scene. On the 15th of May 2021, police raided the warehouse area for inspection. They found the container locked with multiple unusually large padlocks. The fire department was called to assist, cutting the locks and entering. Inside the dark and cramped metal box, there was no one. Agnes was gone, and so was Paisan. Only the strong smell of bleach lingered, as if the place had been recently scrubbed. As the investigators surveyed the scene, an older man hurried over. It was Nekulai Paisan. He had mistakenly thought his container was on fire and rushed there in panic. With a face both worried and astonished upon seeing the police, Paisan was taken to the Wembley station for witness questioning, while the technical team continued to search for clues. In the interrogation room at the station, Paisan appeared calm and cooperative. Initially, he stated that he last saw Agnes around late April, about 2 weeks before she disappeared. After investigators revealed that both were seen on CCTV on May 9, Paisan finally admitted that he had indeed picked up Agnes and brought her to the container that day. However, he claimed that they just sat and talked for about 20 minutes. Then he drove her to an ATM to withdraw money, and he did not see her again afterward. He also added that Agnes had constantly complained about being bored and wanting to leave England, so she might have gone away on her own. The calmness in his statement caused some junior officers to hesitate. However, seasoned detectives quickly noticed something was off. Video evidence showed Paisan was lying. Cameras at the container lot confirmed that Agnes did not leave the container after entering with him. Additionally, cell phone location data obtained through signal towers showed that over the previous 12 months, the phones of Agnes and Paisan were frequently at the same locations at overlapping times. This indicated they met regularly, contradicting Paisan's story of just occasional encounters. Faced with these contradictions, Paisan was arrested at the station on suspicion of murder. At the same time, police found multiple suspicious traces in his container, even though the scene had been cleaned. Small blood stains on the walls and floor became visible when tested with chemical reagents. Some old traces remained, a section of carpet was cut out, and more importantly, a large blood streak had soaked into the wooden floor gaps. When DNA from the blood was compared to Agnes's hair, police confirmed it was definitely hers. In the container, authorities also seized the internal DVR security system, containing extremely important footage. The footage showed Paisan pulling a large bag out of the container and placing it in the trunk of a Lexus on the evening of May 9. The black and white images were grainy, but clear enough to show that the bag contained an object roughly the size of a human body. The entire team fell silent, witnessing the moment. There was no doubt they had seen Paisan moving Agnes's body. Immediately, Paisan's Lexus was taken for forensic examination. There, police found additional traces of Agnes's blood in the trunk and on the floor mats. Clearly, despite the perpetrator's attempts to clean, small bloodstains remained in the crevices, impossible to fully remove. At the same time, authorities reviewed all cameras along Paisan's route after May 9. This was an extremely difficult search through a massive city. Yet police persevered, tracing each frame showing Paisan's Lexus NX passing intersections. Signals were lost multiple times as the car entered blind spots, but they persistently followed at the next intersections, bit by bit. Eventually, the hazy frames were pieced together into a coherent sequence of events. It was persistence that brought about the unexpected breakthrough. The camera recorded Paisan's car, driving into an empty lot, where there were many construction trash bins. The alarm was immediately set off, searching through the pile of leftover trash, and using the fever when finding a fairly new female security vest, similar to the one Agnes often wore. Nearby, they also found a plastic bag containing women's clothes, and notably, a handheld electric saw stained with reddish-brown marks resembling blood. A few strands of light-colored hair were stuck on the saw blade. Everything was sealed and sent for analysis. DNA results from the blood shocked everyone. It was Agnes Acom's blood. Thus, the electric saw was clearly used as a weapon, to the extent that the victim's hair remained on the blade. These gruesome pieces of evidence provided a grim confirmation. Agnes had almost certainly been brutally killed. Even though evidence suggested she was unlikely to survive, investigators were determined to locate her body to bring some comfort to the family and strengthen the case. They focused on the N Creation Ground area, a small park with wooded sections, where CCTV showed Paisan visiting multiple times after Agnes went missing. A K-9 unit was deployed, along with dozens of officers, thoroughly combing every bush and tree trunk. On the 14th of June 2021, 36 days after Agnes went missing, in a sparse wooded area, two dogs suddenly barked loudly and persistently sniffed near a fallen tree. Everyone's heart sank. Digging through the decayed leaves and dry branches covering the ground, police found heavily decomposed body parts. The victim's body was wrapped in a black plastic bag, with the head tightly secured in another bag and bound with rope. DNA samples were quickly confirmed. It was Agnes Dora Acum. Everyone could not hide their sorrow seeing the tragic fate of the young girl. Finally, after more than a month of investigation, Agnes was returned home but in an unimaginable condition. The autopsy results were shocking. Agnes had suffered severe head trauma, with at least 20 impacts from a blunt object, causing her skull to be shattered. Additionally, there were signs of strangulation by rope, suggesting possible asphyxiation. Time of death was the afternoon of the 9th of May 2021, just a few hours after she encountered Paisan. The victim's body was tightly wrapped in a sack and plastic bag, with branches placed on top, indicating the perpetrator deliberately tried to conceal it. After burying the victim, Paisan returned to the scene up to 5 times to check a behavior commonly observed in killers worried about being caught. As evidence solidified, the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, decided to charge Nekulai Paisan with murder and interfering with lawful burial. The trial was scheduled at the Old Bailey, the central criminal court handling the most serious cases. The perpetrator, Nekulai Paisan, born in 1957, of Romanian origin, appeared ordinary, short and stocky, with graying hair and a deeply lined face. He had lived and worked in England for years, residing in Kensington, London. His main occupation was driving a concrete mixer for construction projects. Paisan was the father of 4 children. His wife and children remained in Romania, while he worked in England to send money home. According to his testimony, at least one son was also in England. Right after the crime, he had mentioned wanting to return to Romania, indicating an intention to flee. In the past, Paisan had no serious violent criminal record. He had minor offenses in England, such as fines for benefit fraud, a warning for possessing dangerous weapons, and 1 traffic violation. These offenses indicated he was not entirely innocent, but not predictive of murder. There was no information suggesting Paisan had a serious mental disorder. He was tried fully competent. Regarding his relationship with the victim, Agnes had no familial ties to him, yet cruel fate intervened, and she met him by chance. Around late 2020, Agnes, in desperate need, went to a supermarket parking lot to ask for spare change, where she encountered Nekulai Paisan. The older Romani man showed sympathy, gave her some money, and asked for her contact number. Moved by his kindness and perhaps grateful for the help, she did not remain very cautious. From that point, an unusual relationship developed between 2 people of different ages and nationalities. He claimed he wanted to help her, treating her like a daughter, calling her his little princess, little angel, or little sparrow. Agnes, in turn, referred to him as grandfather or uncle in trust. But behind that facade of kindness, Paisan gradually made Agnes dependent. He would give her small amounts of money, gifts, and increasingly demanded she spend time with him in the container he rented. Over 18 months of acquaintance, Agnes met Paisan 54 times, roughly once a week. Notably, she kept these meetings from her boyfriend, likely due to shame and fear of misunderstanding. The exact nature of this relationship remained unclear, as Paisan insisted there was no sexual involvement, claiming they only talked and he mentored Agnes as if she were family. However, shortly afterward, he claimed that Agnes often undressed, danced, and joked around whenever she met him, even sending provocative photos and videos online. In fact, during the investigation, police seized numerous photos of Agnes on Paisan's phone, taken by him inside the container. However, how those photos were taken remains known only to Paisan, and no one could verify it. Agnes's friends later insisted she was definitely not a sex worker and not addicted to drugs, as Paisan had slandered. It's possible she felt indebted for his help and complied with his bizarre demands, or she had been psychologically manipulated by a predator. Regardless of the reason, it was clear she had fallen into the sights of a cruel person disguised as a good one. According to Paisan, he considered Agnes like family and only wanted to help her live a better life. Yet what happened on May 9 proved the opposite. The true motive for Nekulai Paisan killing Agnes has never been admitted by him. However, the court and prosecution presented plausible hypotheses. Paisan might have been extremely angry when Agnes refused a relationship or failed to meet his demands. It's also possible he grew fed up with giving her money when she repeatedly asked for financial support. Whatever the specific motive, Paisan was clearly a dangerous manipulator and predator. He exploited Agnes's loneliness and financial struggles for his personal gain. When he didn't get what he wanted, he was willing to take her life. Paisan's behavior after the crime revealed a chilling, calculating coldness. Even when arrested, he pretended to be innocent, constructing lies to blame the victim. All of this inadvertently highlighted the portrait of a cunning, cruel, and inhumane killer. In July 2022, nearly 15 months after Agnes's death, the case went to trial in London. The defendant, Paisan, with a wrinkled face but still maintaining a cold demeanor, was charged with murder and obstructing justice related to hiding and disposing of the victim. A carefully selected 12-person jury listened to testimonies and evidence over several weeks. The trial was extremely tense. The prosecuting attorney presented the full course of the investigation. Irrefutable forensic evidence connected Paisan to the crime. He described Paisan as a vicious predator who exploited and murdered a vulnerable young woman. The jury also viewed CCTV footage showing Agnes entering the container, Paisan leaving alone with blood on his arm, and him pushing a trash bin containing the victim. Many in the courtroom were stunned by the raw images. Forensic evidence was also compiled. Agnes's blood and hair were found in the container and the defendant's car. The weapon found in the trash contained her DNA. The plastic bag around her head matched the type found in the container. The medical examiner described the horrific head injuries caused by at least 20 impacts, leaving listeners deeply distressed. The prosecutor also emphasized that there was no evidence Agnes had ever been a sex worker or addicted to drugs. He concluded Paisan lied to evade punishment, yet objective truth revealed his true nature. Then, Nekulai Paisan took the stand to defend himself, contrary to his defiant demeanor when arrested. Now, he appeared weak and trembling in court, trying to garner some sympathy. Paisan repeated the story that he had been poisoned. Just as during interrogation, he consistently denied hitting Agnes, repeatedly calling her a poor child and claiming he loved her like his own. Notably, despite being fluent in English, he used an interpreter to delay proceedings. He even tearfully claimed that he had temporary memory loss at that time. He couldn't remember why Agnes died, only that he was so panicked that he hid the victim. Paisan even said that she had begged for money, used drugs, and tried to pour a liquid into his mouth, which he had to push away. Hearing this, the prosecutor quickly stood up to expose him. He asked sharply, "If you were innocent, why didn't you call for help when you saw her collapse? Why did you clean the scene, bury her, and dispose of her clothes and the bloody weapon?" At this point, Paisan could only stammer a few words about fearing no one would believe him, then fell silent. Attendees at the trial also heard testimony from the victim's family. Agnes's mother sent a tearful letter to the court, expressing regret that the last conversation between mother and daughter ended with a slight quarrel, and now she had permanently lost the chance to say "I love you" to her daughter. Agnes's boyfriend stood directly in court, staring at Paisan and condemning him for defaming Agnes with malicious lies. He choked out, "She was my love, the mother of my son, my partner, and my best friend, and he took her from me in the most cruel way." The courtroom fell silent in grief. Some jurors shed tears. Paisan hung his head, not daring to meet the eyes of those he had hurt. After more than 2 weeks of trial, the jury took just 1 hour to deliberate, a record short time to reach a verdict. On the 19th of July 2022, the court found Nekulai Paisan guilty of murder with clear evidence, rejecting all defenses. A week later, on the 25th of July, the sentencing took place. The judge, serving as a permanent London judge, condemned the defendant in stern terms. He called Paisan's actions shockingly cruel. Finally, the court sentenced Nekulai Paisan to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years, meaning he must serve at least 22 years before being eligible for parole. For the now 64-year-old man, this sentence was almost equivalent to spending the rest of his life behind bars. Upon hearing the sentence, Paisan showed little reaction. But as he was led away, he glanced at Agnes's family holding her photo, his eyes vacant, knowing his life was effectively over. In early 2024, Nekulai Paisan filed an appeal against both the conviction and sentence with bizarre arguments. He complained that a juror smelled of cannabis during the trial, that the judge didn't consider his old age and frailty, and sentenced him too harshly. He also falsely claimed he had no interpreter, and fabricated that only one juror was present at sentencing. All of these appeals were firmly rejected by the Court of Appeal in May 2024. 3 appellate judges ruled that Paisan's claims were either unsupported or completely irrelevant to the sentencing. They clarified that the trial followed proper procedures, Paisan had full legal representation, and the 22-year minimum sentence for a brutal crime was entirely appropriate. Paisan had no choice but to abandon the appeal. Justice had been fully served. The case officially closed, and the police had partially restored justice for the victim. For the investigators, the Agnes Acom case was considered an outstanding achievement. The press and public praised the Newton investigation team for their rare dedication and professionalism. They solved the case swiftly, gathering irrefutable evidence within weeks, turning a complex missing person case into a solid 100% prosecutable file. Statistics show that in 2021, the Metropolitan Police received nearly 40,000 missing person reports. Yet only 4 cases turned into homicides. Agnes Acom was one of these very rare cases, and the police did not let her become a forgotten name. This case was also made into a documentary in the BBC series The Met. Season 4, Episode 2, aired at the end of 2023, allowing the public to witness the painstaking and moving investigation process. What about you? What reflections does this case bring to mind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And before you leave, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support our team, bringing you many thrilling stories in the future. For now, we'll see you again at the same time tomorrow.